This is a municipal land use board of the Borough of River Edge, Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. The time now is 7:32. This meeting of the municipal land use board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to the Borough Council Chambers unavailability and is in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this remote meeting was published in the Bergen Record on October 6, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the borough's website. The notice included a dial-in/login information necessary for public participation and access to the meeting remotely. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to participate, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button or Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keyboard to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address prior to making a public statement. So, Marina, can we have roll call, please?
Yes. The mayor is excused tonight. Mr. Caslin is excused tonight. Ms. Boland is excused tonight. Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Arkelian,
Here.
Councilman Kanigo,
Present.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Mr. Esposito is excused tonight, and Mr. Bastide.
Here.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right. So our first order of business is the approval of the June 14th, 23 meeting minutes. Do any board members have comments, changes, or additions to those minutes?
Nope.
Not hearing any, I will entertain a motion for acceptance.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay. So
I'll second.
that was Mr. Who made the motion? I didn't hear that. That was
Mr. Cray, Mr. Gibbons.
okay. Great. Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Not hearing any. The minutes are approved. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes for June 28th, 2023. Likewise, once again, do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to these minutes? All right, not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance.
So moved again.
Okay, Mr. Cray?
I'll second again.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, not hearing any. Hey, we're moving right along here. All right. Next order of board business is the approval of the resolution granting site plan approval and food handlers license for Critchley's Candies LLC on located on 812 Kinderkamack Road, block 404, lot 1. Obviously the borough of New Jersey. I believe Ed sent out a revised copy late this afternoon. And if you didn't receive it, let me know. We'll explain the change. So I assume everybody received the latest copy?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I picked up, I believe the change that you made was on the first page. You corrected Rosanna Rossi if she had been not referred to as Miss Rossi. Am I correct? Is that the only one change you made?
I made,
was-
yes, I made a change to the abbreviation of Ms. Rossi's name and then also to the block and lots throughout. It was,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Do any board members have any additions, deletions, or comments? Not hearing any. I have one, and I would like to make an insertion. Let me catch this. Okay, it's probably 4 pages in under the public hearing portion. The title is public hearing, and excuse me, it's item number 11. So Lisa, if you can call that up, you'll be able to follow me.
I'll just write it down. Go ahead.
Okay, number 11, before the last sentence reads, the applicant is requesting a variance for the existing signage. I'm suggesting that we insert just before that sentence, prior sentence that says existing sign photographs were submitted with the application, period. They were, and I want to get those documented into the submittal as a way of baselining those signs. So I'll read that again. Existing sign photographs were submitted with the application. Okay? All right.
Are you talking, that's going in the minutes or it's going on the
no,
resolution?
I'll make the edit in the resolution.
Okay, because I thought it was in the minutes. Okay, thank you.
I think it was in the minutes, but not in the resolution. Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, and they were submitted. All right. Okay, so any other comments by any of the members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as, excuse me, accept the resolution as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Eric Caroline.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gino, Councilman. Okay, all in favor of accepting?
Mr. Mer, I usually do a voice vote, so I'll just,
Okay.
I usually do a roll call.
Okay, great. We'll do a roll call.
So I'll only call those eligible. Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kaniga,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
great. Okay, let's move on to the last piece of business tonight, which is under old business. And it's Dark Star Development LLC, 335 Johnson Avenue, River Edge, block 1405, lot 3. Tonight, all right. As you might recall, the board had denied the original application on May 24th, 2023. Mr. Sarlo, the applicant's counsel, had sent a letter dated June 12th, 2023 as a request for a reconsideration. Tonight's business is to either accept or deny Mr. Sarlo's request. So that's all we're limited to tonight. And that's what we'll the only item on, the only part of this application that we are going to handle tonight is the request for record of Mr. Sarlo's letter for reconsideration. Mr. Chinigo, I don't think, Councilman, I don't think we need you if you're still with us.
Yep, that's fine. Then I will say, good night, everyone.
You're perfectly welcome to stay and all, but from a voting standpoint, you realize you are recused.
Yeah, no, I'll let you guys do your thing, and then if it comes to us, I'll hear everything done.
Okay,
Have a great night, Dario.
Take care, everyone. Good night.
okay, good night. So,
Wait, we're dropping like flies.
well, it's a short order of business. I would like to give obviously every board member an opportunity to comment on this. Remember, it's only for a request for reconsideration. And I'll just run down my list here. Mr. Pfeffer, do you have any comments?
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Merman. I don't know if Mr. Sarlo wanted to make any statement about his letter first, or if you want to get the board comments first.
All right, I'll let Mr. Sarlo, if you're online, I'll let you make a short statement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councilor, members of the board. Again, Charles Sarlo on behalf of the applicant, Dark Star Development LLC. I'll be brief and really just kind of hit some of the highlights in my letter. And if any of the board members require, further explanation in terms of what the intent is, or any of the points of my letter, I'd be happy to expand. I think, counselor for the board, the last hearing, when this was reviewed in a cursory manner, I think she did a good job in really explaining what this is about. This is a procedural matter. It is a request for reconsideration. The law is clear that once a board makes a decision, it's final. It can't be reopened. Otherwise, everybody would ask it for it to be reopened. It's not fine. It's final from a standpoint of the vote, but it's not final because the board has not adopted the resolution. If the board had adopted the resolution, basically game is over, and then the parties can do as they desire. So we're kind of in this interim period where the board did act, but it's not final because the resolution hasn't been adopted, and we've asked for a reconsideration. And there's a threshold, there's a bar for the board to consider, again, so that every applicant does not come before this board and ask for, hey, we think you made a bad vote. We think you misinterpreted us or something like that. There's the threshold. And what is that threshold? So the law basically says if it was a mistake of fact or a mistake of law, it doesn't have to be both, a mistake of fact or a mistake of law, then as it relates to the issues that were voted upon, then the board can vote to reconsider. Again, that's really what it would be is, based on my letter, based on my further explanation in my short statement today, is if you think there was a mistake of fact on a critical issue that was voted upon or a mistake of law, then in my opinion, I would ask that the board say, yes, we agree there was a mistake of fact or a mistake of law, and you would vote to, reconsider. So what does all that really mean? So, when the chairman polled the board before the vote at the time of the hearing, the board members had the opportunity to, give their opinions, what they thought about the application. And you obviously could get a good sense of, where a board member may be on their issues, their concerns, whether they were going to look favorably on the application or not. There were two things that came out as the board members were polled: the height issue and the paving of the road, okay, of Johnson Avenue. So let me just talk about, and I want to touch on each of them very quickly. And it's in my letter of June 12, 2023. The height, we consider that to be a mistake of fact. There was obviously a lot of testimony. There's a lot of documents that were provided, but if you just have to look at the end of the hearing and the minutes that were adopted by the hearing. So in my summation, I basically had made a comment that I thought that the height, and I forget the exact words, but the height variance that we were looking for was minor in nature, or not significant. One of the board members, and I obviously made a lot of other statements, but one of the board members had indicated that she had agreed with me on everything with the except of the height, and she would characterize that as significant. And the board minutes that were adopted says Mr. Sarle's summation, other than it not being a big ask for the height when 35 feet is required, and they are asking for 52 feet plus the parapet. So that comes right from the meeting minutes. So what was, at least in this one board member's mind, and maybe potentially influence some of the other board members, but the height was 35 feet, and we were asking for 52 feet plus the parapet wall. So something in excess of 52 feet. That's what, factually, that was what was being considered. Okay, so if we quickly look at the numbers, and they're on the drawing, and I'm just going to quickly go through them. 37 feet 1 inch to the roof line, right? If you have a pen and paper, you can jot it down. 49 feet 1 inch to the top of the elevator roof. Okay, you want to call that the bulkhead or top of the elevator. Okay. The next measurement is 52.25 feet to the top of the parapet on that bulkhead. Okay, architecturally, there's not only a parapet around the entire perimeter of the building. Architecturally, there's a parapet wall to match on the top of that bulkhead. So 52.25 feet to the top of the parapet on the bulkhead. So that's max. Now, in your ordinance, it says parapets and rooftop structures, including elevators, do not count towards the height by either 20% or 10 foot, whatever is less. Okay, so 35 feet is permitted by the building code. 20% of 35 feet is 7 feet. That's obviously less than the 10 feet. So we are allowed another 7 feet, okay, by the exception in your ordinance. Okay, so 52.25 feet to the top of the parapet. Okay, that's the parapet on top of the elevator. We are allowed that 7 feet by your own ordinance. So really, what we were asking for in terms of height was 45 feet, 0.25, right? The 52.25 minus the 7. 45 feet. The ordinance allows 35 feet. The minutes reflect that factually, we were looking for 52.25 feet plus the parapet. So something more. Call it 55, call it 56, call it 57, I don't know. Because it just said plus the parapet. Just taking the 52 feet versus the 45 feet, that's 13% difference. Plus the parapet, you're probably at a 20% differential. To me, that's a mistake of fact. In terms of how you looked at, or how those board members that voted no, factually, if they thought they had to vote on granting a variance of something more than 52 feet, and the ordinance only required 35 feet, that's wrong. It's just factually, it's wrong. Numbers are numbers, right? So that's, I think, a mistake of fact, and obviously it was a concern to one or more of the 3 board members that voted no. So we're not talking about the color of the building, something that maybe somebody thought it was blue and it was brown. that's immaterial to how the vote went, right? This was a material fact that I think is incorrect. I also think it applies to the mistake of law. I think there was uncontroverted testimony, expert testimony, that in terms of height, how you have to look at the height variance is, will it have a impact to, or can the site, let me rephrase it, can the site accommodate that extra height, that variance that we're looking for? And there was testimony that given that it was a small footprint, 2.5% of the overall building footprint, and the way it was positioned on the site, any shading would stay on the site. So it would have, according to the applicant's professional planner, any shading would stay on the site. I think part of the commentary as the board was deliberating was, some board members didn't want to set a precedent for height, 4 stories in River Edge and things like that. So I think not only is it the height was a mistake of fact based on the numerical difference, but it was a misapplication of the law. So I also consider that a mistake of law. Go into the site plan very quick. The only concern at the time of the hearing, I didn't hear anything, and nothing's reflected in the meeting minutes about the site itself, right? We asked for a parking variance, we asked for some bulk variances, there was traffic movement patterns, and some landscaping. A lot of those questions were asked during the hearing, and then, hopefully we satisfied them, and they were all good questions. But at the time of deliberation, there was no questions really asked about or any concerns raised about the site itself from a site plan perspective. Obviously, there was a lot of commentary about the request to repave Johnson Avenue. I take that to mean that site plan was denied on the basis of the applicant unwilling to pave Johnson Avenue. That is an off-track improvement. That cannot be considered as part of a denial or a basis of denial for site plan approval. That's a request for off-track improvement. I cited a Dunkin' Donuts case in my letter. And Dunkin' Donuts case really dealt with traffic impacts off-site, actually dealt with the traffic circle. But the premise of that case is the premise is that a board cannot consider off-track improvements, or I mean, say off-track concerns. In that case, it was a traffic outside of the site. Here, I think it was, hey, we need Johnson Avenue. We'd like to have Johnson Avenue repaved. So that case basically, supported what's in the municipal land use law that says a board cannot deny a site plan approval for off-track concerns. Now, a board could make a condition for improvements to off-track, right? It can't be a basis of denial, but it could be a condition of approval. But in order to be a condition of approval, it's got to be rooted in the town's ordinance. And I quote the town's ordinance here. So it talks about a contribution well, it's in the municipal land use law at NJS 40:55-42. It basically says what I just said. As a condition of approval of a site plan, the board can request that the developer pay on a pro rata share of the cost of providing only reasonable and necessary street improvements. Also water drainage, water and drainage and sewage, but that we're not really talking about that. So pro rata share, okay, provided that it's within your ordinance. So your ordinance at section 350-42.E-2, and that's also my letter, does say, okay, does say that your off-track improvements shall not include the improvement costs of X, Y, and Z. substantial street construction or improvements. So off-track, and according to your code, off-track improvements does not include substantial street improvements unless the said improvement is significantly affected by the site being developed. So you can't consider it unless your request for an off-track improvement is going to be significantly impacted by the development. And I would concede, because I think there was some commentary that some board members or the board engineer thought that the road would get ripped up during construction. Okay, so if you take that premise, okay, so maybe you do fall within the code, but two things. Number one, it would have to be a condition of the approval, not a basis for denial. And number two, you could only ask the developer to pay a pro rata share of that cost. Okay, because presumably he's not going to rip up curb to curb. It's not that type of development. So in my opinion, the site plan and the height both had a mistake of law, and the height had a mistake of fact. And then the other thing is, from a pure legal standpoint, site plan was probably approved. Because when there was a 4-3 vote, there was a motion to approve. This was not a motion to deny. There was a motion to approve. Board considered this as a package. And for site plan approval, you only need majority vote. So I think there was also potentially a mistake of law in how the board handled this when there was up the polling, because the board could have broke it off, and we could be sitting here today with my client having site plan approval, because there was 4 votes to the 3. Now, why is that potentially relevant? Is maybe between then and now, if my client had site plan approval, he may just say, I'm going to get rid of that roof amenity, the elevator. Let's just start building. Interest rates are going up. Let's start proving. I got site plan approval. I got the other variances. I didn't get my height variance. Let's go. But that option wasn't given. The option wasn't given to him, because even though it was a 4-3 vote that, again, I think approved the site plan, it was wrapped up and it was based on the denial. So that's the position of the applicant. So I'll take any questions if any board members have any questions.
Wait a second. Marina,
Yes.
Mr. Sarlo just stated his whole case. Are we not here tonight only to consider whether or not we will act on his request for a reconsideration? We're not here to act on whether or not we did right or wrong or whatever his case is. We are solely here to act on his request for a reconsideration. Is that not correct?
That is correct, and Mr. Sarlo just summarized his reasons for the request.
I understand that, but so the board members tonight are only considering the fact of whether we proceed with a reconsideration or not.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Now, Mr. Sarlo, you want to say anything regarding that?
No, I agree. It wasn't that it wasn't the proofs needed for the height variance. I did not go that far. It was, yes. And I think, to put it simply, and Counselor could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think based on what I just said and what's in my letter, if the board believes there was a mistake of fact or a mistake of law, then you should vote to reconsider, because that's really what this is all about.
All right, so we're here to entertain your request for reconsideration solely tonight. That's our action that we're going to do. All right, now, so I'm hoping that the board members remember that as we proceed. And I'm going to ask Mr. Feber if he has any comments regarding the fact of whether we should reconsider or not reconsider. If we reconsider, it will be at the next scheduled meeting. So Pfeiffer,
Yeah.
Pfeiffer, you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Sarlo, for summarizing the points of your letter and the reasons why you believe that there should be reconsideration. I just have a quick comment about in favor of reconsideration. I did vote for the project originally. I was one of the 4, but regardless of that, I think that I could base what I'm about to say on the legal arguments, but I really think there's just a very simple matter of the mistake in fact that really requires us to reconsider this. And that is this. One of the people who voted against, one of the board members that voted against was Ms. Boland. She's not here tonight. I do recall, I'm not sure how it's phrased in the minutes. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but I do recall her actually specifically requesting of the applicant something along the lines of, would you be willing to be flexible on the height of the building, even by about 2 feet? And I really think that if it was clear at that time that that there was this confusion about whether the application was for the parapet plus additional feet, or whether the height request included the parapet, and that the ordinance allows a certain cushion in calculating that height, a 7-foot cushion. If that were clear, and if that were considered by all the board members at the time, maybe Ms. Boland would have changed her vote, maybe not. But since she's not here tonight, I think in fairness, she should be given the opportunity to consider that. And at least to say, no, I was very clear on that point and I would still vote no, or no, I didn't realize that, but given that fact, I'll change my vote. And we just don't know just how she would want to vote on this issue, given that information. And I don't think, I know for myself, that particular information didn't seem very clear at the time that we took the vote. I voted for it for other reasons. I felt that it was important to the community to support the project. But aside from that, I do think that there was enough of, there was enough confusion about this height issue, and the fact that one of the people who voted against the applicant, the application, specifically voted against it because of the height issue. I think we need to give it another look and have everybody weigh in, given this clarification of the information. So I would support reconsideration. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Cray. Mr. Cray? We have Michael Cray on the line?
Yeah, he's on mute.
I forgot to unmute. I apologize. I think by now,
Okay.
I think I'd know better by now.
Mr. Cray, just remember, the only thing we're considering tonight is whether we recognize and extend a request for reconsideration at a later date.
I understand.
Not the merits, plus or minus of the project, but whether we allow the reconsideration request.
Yep. I do have a question, Mr. Sarlo. I'm a little bit bemused by the kind of statement that, the board should have taken on their own, or effectively did without knowing it, approve the site plan. as if it was a separate submittal to your variance requests. I mean, I don't know that it's in our purview or anybody would be particularly happy about us looking at someone's application for variance and deciding which ones we're going to approve and the other ones are going to sit on the side and they're not going to get addressed. I mean, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about why you think a site plan had been approved when in fact your application was denied.
So the only reason I say, and it was denied, the application was denied, and that's the basis of it. It was a motion to approve. But then the application was denied because we did not get the 5 affirmative votes for the height variance. But a site plan only requires, or site plan approval only requires a majority vote.
Understood, but you didn't submit a separate site plan request, right? I mean, it's part of the entire submittal you made, correct?
It's part of the entire submittal,
Right,
but
and that was
the evaluation and the proofs that have to be put on are significantly different for a height variance versus site plan approval,
Understood.
right? And so, and the board is considering those. You hear the testimony of the applicant's planner, the board's planner, and that's as it relates to the variances. You hear the testimony of the board's engineer and the applicant's engineer as it relates to site plan issues. So while it's wrapped up in one, they are separate. So the only point I was making is, and I'm not, trust me, I'm not, I do this too many times a month for a long period of time. What this board did is what not even the majority, 99% of the boards do. They wrap everything up. And usually it's not raised as a concern or raised as an issue. Obviously with the no vote or the statutory denial, I'm only raising it saying, well, if you need 4, okay, 4 out of 7, I got 4 out of 7. And there was no issue raised as it relates to the site plan approval. However, can I go into town tomorrow and say I'm going to take all? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Craig, but can I go into town tomorrow and with construction plans and say we're going to take off that build the 4th floor, and we got the height variance was denied, and we're not going to do the height variance, and could I get a construction permit because I got site plan approval? No, I can't do that because the board denied the package.
Right, and there was a reasonable amount of questioning around some of the site plan things, the setbacks, the rear yard setbacks, the building coverage, the parking. I mean, and decisions can be made on that without it being presented as the greatest or the an area of questioning. Okay, there was a lot of testimony around those variances. So it's not a question of they weren't discussed and they weren't evaluated, and you don't really know whether they were used for a basis for denial or not.
And
For
again,
the 3 people who did vote no.
yeah, well, again, I could only go by, and the board's process, and I think it's the right process, where you poll the board members, right? Before the vote, you poll the board members. In some boards, they don't do that. Majority of boards, they don't do that. Okay. But you're 100% right, Mr. Cray, in terms of there was a lot of testimony related to parking and setbacks and landscaping. But if you remember when it started tonight, I focused on when the board was polled, when they were ready to vote, there were, out of the 3 board members that voted no, nobody talked about a parking variance. Nobody talked about setback issues. Nobody talked about traffic circulation on site. The 2 issues that seemed to be in the board's minds that voted no were the height and the road paving. So yes, maybe I'm taking a leap of faith here, but I said, well, if a board wanted to vote no because they thought they still had a concern with regard to the parking variance, they would have presumably raised that during their deliberation. That's my only point.
Okay. All I guess the very last thing is just on the maximum building height issue. I know your variance request specifically noted the 52.25 foot parapet. So it was specific that that was the parapet. And I know there was a reasonable amount of discussion around that entire elevator structure, because I think there were even requests to have the drawings corrected so that we could see exactly what was on some of the section views. So I guess I understand your point that someone said 52 feet plus the parapet, but I guess it's hard for me to tell from memory, whether that was, okay, it's 52 feet plus the parapet, or whether that 52 feet in the drawings, which was, pretty clearly shown how tall this was going to be, it would have been affected. And that's going to be what you perceived and what I perceived. There's no real answer to that. I just want to make the comment. And I'm good.
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Mr. Great, thank you.
Mr. Merman, if I may just add to that, to those comments. The applicant has the right to request a bifurcation of a D variance from the board. That wasn't presented to the board, so the board had the right to hear everything as one,
Okay,
just to clarify for everyone's information.
so let's move on. Thank you. Mr. Bostad, I'm really
Yes.
looking for what our purpose tonight is, and that's simply a approval or denial of Mr. Sarlo's request for reconsideration. I'm not looking for discussion of the issues tonight. It's merely whether we go forward or not per his request. So please limit your comments to that. You can save whatever comments you have for any further discussion if we go on to the reconsideration. Mr. Boset, you have the floor.
It's Mr. Bastide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm crystal clear on that fact, so thank you. I really don't have a question, maybe just more of a comment. And I think really we probably could have had better clarity on the max height that was up for discussion and what it should be measured against versus the height of the building. So that's it. Just a real brief comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Gibbons. Once again, we're only considering tonight whether we grant Mr. Sarlo's request for reconsideration, and no, we're not here to discuss the merits of the project itself. So the floor is yours, Mr. Gibbons.
Understood. Thank you. So I feel I understood the height issue. I feel like we did discuss the allowance. I do remember hearing about the 10% allowance that the ordinance presents. I do remember questioning whether that parapet or that the elevator section could be lowered. And I do believe the answer was no. So I think that does kind of go back to, could it be lowered? Could it be addressed to Mrs. Boland's problem? So I do feel that we covered that adequately. I feel like I understood what was being presented and how high was being asked. So, I think that definitely was addressed, and I do think that, we gave you the opportunity after polling to do something, to go back and change things. And the applicant didn't take that opportunity. So, personally, I don't see issues with our decision. I personally think that I was educated on what was being asked and how tall it was going to be and what was allowed. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Eric Killian. I'm giving you the last opportunity, like you generally give me the last opportunity. It's all yours. Well,
Thank
we're only,
you,
again,
Chairman.
Mr. Eric Killian, only considering
I'm
tonight.
well aware. Yep, I'm well
Okay.
aware.
We're
So
not
I
going
just have a
over.
couple questions. Just have a couple questions. And I actually want to address the first one to Ms. Stinley. I might have passed out during the application. I'm not sure, but I don't remember when the request for polling was made. I don't remember the board granting that and allowing for that. When Mr. Sarlo asked to poll the board on why they made the decisions, I believe that we told them no. Am I wrong on that?
I believe that's correct. I don't remember,
So the
polling the
polling,
board
Mr.
about-
Sarlo, I don't know who you polled, but you didn't poll me. And I was specific in saying that that was not something that I was comfortable with the board doing. And I believe that, I don't believe that the board actually did do a poll. Am I wrong?
There was, before the vote, there was certainly, just like,
No,
The
there
chairman-
was talk. Yes.
Yeah, so maybe,
talk, but
maybe
there
the
was no
poll,
polling. You
Right,
asked
so maybe the-
specifically, to poll the board. And after discussion, you were told no. So it wasn't really a polling of the board. We had a
So-
discussion.
so I stand
So
corrected.
the
If the word
polling should
polling is,
should
I
be
really,
withdrawn.
okay,
Yep.
yes, it wasn't a poll. I actually consider this a poll because I'm getting a sense of the board's, commentary, right? So I could,
But it wasn't a poll.
it wasn't maybe a true poll. It wasn't a
Okay.
straw poll. Are you going to vote yes or
Okay.
no?
So I feel
So I
better because
apologize for that confusion.
I've been known to fall asleep at times. I thought maybe I slept through that.
No,
Uh,
so it was a discussion.
Okay.
It was an internal poll in my head.
All right, and
Okay.
then, now, as a rule, and we've been through this before, and Mr. Sarlo, I don't know if you were aware that I was chair of this board for quite a while. We've had many discussions on the proper method of approving or disapproving an application. And if I go back, Marina, back me up on this or not? It was basically agreed that moving forward, we would make a motion to approve and let the votes decide whether that approval was going to happen or not. It was, the motion to approve really didn't have a bearing on the application itself. It was just a motion to approve to allow the board to move forward. Otherwise, we would possibly have a stalemate and not be able to have any kind of vote. Am I right on that, Marina?
I believe so. At the hearing, there was an initial motion, and it was amended, and then, yes, the votes,
But on a
led to the
motion,
denial.
yeah, it's always been this board's, for as long as I've been on, and it was really an instruction from not only Marina, but prior attorneys, that the motion should be made to approve the project and then let the votes speak for themselves. So the fact that a motion was made to approve the project doesn't necessarily lend to an argument that it should have been approved, or a site plan should have been approved because of that motion. And that was our instructions from many years ago. And it lets the votes speak for themselves. Are you in agreement with that, Mr. Sarlo?
I am not going to challenge what this board has done and been instructed to do. I don't necessarily agree. I
Okay,
respectfully disagree. I think the courts, if it's a motion to approve, it's a motion to approve. It's a motion to deny, it's a motion to deny.
right, but the motion to approve was denied. So
It's
that's a denial.
considered, it's considered a statutory denial.
So I'll agree with you that I believe what you said is accurate. You can't go tomorrow and say, here's my site plan. I'm going to start building the building without the variance.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. So
That's
I
absolutely
thought that
correct.
was an important point to make.
Yes,
On
that's
that,
absolutely
Mr.
correct.
Berman, I hand it back to you. And I'm prepared to make a motion. I believe everybody's been heard.
Whoa. Not yet, mister. We got a little ways to go yet.
Oh,
Thank you,
you
Mr.
haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. We have to go to the public. Also.
Okay,
Okay.
so motion
You'll
open to
get-
the public.
Just hold. I will let you, I know you're anxious. I'll let you make your motion shortly.
Go ahead.
So you're done. Okay, Mr. Sarla. My piece. River Edge has always been a very fair board. And I personally adhere to that. We, in this particular case, have demonstrated our fairness in particularly in our way we handled the curfews and gave you extra time and so on and so forth. So that demonstrates our fairness. And in demonstrating our fairness, I'm all for continuing that by granting your request for reconsideration when the vote comes. If you want to respond to that, that's up to you, and then we'll move on.
No, the only thing I can say is, this board has been very gracious, very cooperative in terms of, the process and allowing the time, and very professional in every manner. And I think it's, I think it's actually a very good board in terms of asking good, direct questions. Unlike, like I said, I see in other towns where, the board members are not as engaged as I see this board. So my argument, obviously, I'm advocating on behalf of my client, and I'm not, and I have a problem with, and unfortunately I have to use it because that's what the law says. I have a problem with using the word mistake, right? Mistake means something bad, right? Somebody made a mistake, but that's what the law says. But it's not necessarily a mistake of fact. It's could something have been clearer? Was the board or a particular board member perhaps a little confused on an issue that required more clarification? Was the applicant's professional, maybe not as clear as the proof that was required, and the testimony to support that? So, I think it's more clarity, than quote unquote mistake, but unfortunately that's what the law says. But please don't take this in any way that I think that, the board was disrespectful or not. I know you're putting the town above everything else, and that's exactly, I think, what this board needs to do in the context of the law.
Okay, thanks. Marina,
Yes,
I guess we have to open this up to the public, correct?
there is someone here, so we can, if they're
Okay.
interested in speaking.
Okay, so then we'll need a motion to open it to the public.
So move, Mr. Merman.
Thank you, Mr. Ara Carolyn.
Second.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
You
If
were
it's-
jumping the gun a few minutes ago.
Okay. Mr. Gibbons, I believe you made the second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Maria, we can take a voice vote on this, correct?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're now open to the public for comments.
Okay, if you would like to make a comment, you can please raise your hand on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone if you're calling in. There is one member, but I don't see a hand raised, so I think we're okay.
So
I have-
we,
I'll motion to close.
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
thank you. All right. Once again, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Eric Kalian, you can make a motion as
Thank-
to whether we grant Mr. Sarlo's request or not.
Thank you.
for
Thank you for
reconsideration.
recognizing me, Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Merman. So, Mr. Merman made a statement earlier, and Mr. Sarlo echoed it as far as this board being fair to not only the residents of the borough, but our business owners as well. And under the circumstances, I believe that this particular application does warrant being remanded back for next meeting. So in that respect, I will make the motion with the applicant's request for a reconsideration to be approved.
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Eric Callahan, and thank you for the second, Mr. Pfeffer. Okay. Marina, I guess we need a roll call.
Yes,
Vote.
yes, and this is just a majority vote. Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
yes.
Mr. Cray,
No,
Mr. Kellion,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
No,
all right, and Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 4-2.
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right, Mr. Sarlo, we're done. We're gonna move on with other board business.
Very good. Thank you.
Have a
Okay.
good
Can I
good
just
night.
Thank you.
interject?
See you in 2 weeks.
Can I just interject that you will now be placed on the agenda for July 26th for your hearing? So if you have any documents or any other papers you want to distribute to the board, please get them to me as soon as possible.
I think Mr.
I think he
Sarlo
left.
already dropped off, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. We'll have to follow up with him.
Okay, are we ready to close? Well, there's no other further business coming before this board by any member? Is there? Not hearing any. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
so moved.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All
All
opposed?
right.
Any abstentions?
Enjoy your summer, everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Wait, hold on. Was that Mr. Gibbons and then Mr. Bastide, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry. Lisa.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.